"We're putting you in a home, Dad. It's for your safety." My daughter smiled when she said it. She'd already forged my signature, listed my house at $180K. But when we arrived at Shady Acres, the director addressed me as Sir. Then I watched her face fall. I'd bought the entire chain 3 years ago. My daughter smiled when she said it. That's the part that still gets me. Not the words themselves, though those were bad enough. It was the smile. Small, practiced, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror a dozen times and finally felt ready for the performance. "We're putting you in a home, Dad." And there it was. At 62 years of living, 40 of them spent breaking my back on job sites from Phoenix to Flagstaff. Mornings that started before the sun had any business being up. Winters where I worked in temperatures that made my knuckles bleed. All of it reduced to a Sunday afternoon conversation in my own kitchen, in the house I built with my own 2 hands, over a pot roast I cooked myself. Because apparently, I couldn't take care of myself anymore. I should back up. My name is Earl Brennigan. I'm 62 years old. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, just outside the city, where the desert starts to breathe again and the subdivisions thin out. I retired 3 years ago after 4 decades in commercial construction, not as some pencil-pushing project manager, but as the guy who actually knew which end of a level to hold. I built real things: schools, medical centers, a shopping complex off the 101 that my daughter drove past every single week, without once saying, "My dad built that." That's fine, I didn't need the credit. What I needed, apparently, was to stay useful enough not to get discarded. My wife, Maureen, passed 6 years ago, pancreatic cancer. She was gone in 4 months. There one morning, making coffee, and then just not there anymore. That kind of loss doesn't leave you. You just learn to carry it differently. Some days, it sits in your chest like a stone. Other days, you almost forget it's there. And then, something small happens. A song. The smell of her shampoo on an old pillowcase you forgot to wash. And it crushes you all over again. After Maureen died, it was just me and my daughter Greta. Greta is 38. She lives about 20 minutes away in a newer neighborhood where all the houses look identical and everyone has a Ring doorbell and strong opinions about HOA paint colors. She married a man named Vance, which honestly should have been my first warning sign, because who names their kid Vance and expects him to turn out normal? I'm kidding. Mostly. Vance is the kind of man who calls himself an entrepreneur between failed businesses. There was the food truck, then the investment property that turned into a money pit, then the e-commerce store that sold novelty socks for approximately 6 weeks before collapsing. Each disaster, somehow, partially funded by me. I never kept exact count, because Maureen always said counting gifts was bad manners. I should have counted. I had also been giving Greta $2,000 every month since her mother died. Just to help. That's what fathers do. At least, that's what I always believed. I have 2 grandchildren, Mackenzie, who's 14, and actually pretty sharp, and Sutton, 11, who once asked me if alligators could be trained as guard dogs. I love that kid. The morning before everything fell apart, I made Sutton breakfast when he slept over. Scrambled eggs and toast. He told me 3 jokes that didn't make any sense, and I laughed anyway. It was a good morning. That was a Saturday. By Sunday afternoon, my whole world had changed. Greta had called and asked if she and Vance could come over. She made it sound casual. Just to chat, Dad. Catch up a little. She even asked if I had any of that iced tea I make with the lemon slices. I made a fresh pitcher. I set out glasses. I thought maybe she was finally going to thank me for the tuition payment I'd made last month. They arrived at 2. Greta hugged me at the door, which should have felt normal, but something about it felt like the kind of hug you give someone before you deliver bad news. Slightly too long, slightly too tight. They sat down at my kitchen table. The same table I built from reclaimed oak in 2003. The same table where Maureen and I used to eat dinner, where Greta did her homework as a teenager, where we'd gathered every Thanksgiving for decades. Greta placed a folder on it. Glossy brochures, nursing facilities, the kind with photos of smiling elderly people doing watercolor paintings and playing shuffleboard like that's anyone's actual idea of a good time. I looked at the folder. I looked at Greta. I looked at Vance, who was studying the ceiling like he'd suddenly become very interested in my light fixture. Smart man, couldn't even look me in the eye. Dad, Greta started, folding her hands on the table in that way she had, the way that meant she'd planned this conversation and was going to stick to the script no matter what I said. We've been doing a lot of thinking and talking, and we're really worried about you. Worried, I said. You've been alone out here for a long time, and we've been noticing some things. What things? Vance finally lowered his gaze from the ceiling. You left the stove on last week, Earl. I did not leave the stove on last week. I have never once in my life left a stove on. I'm a man who checks the door lock 3 times before bed. I turned off burners on job site equipment for 40 years. I don't leave stoves on. I don't leave stoves on, I said. Dad, Greta's voice got soft. That practiced softness. You don't always remember these things. I remember everything. You forgot Vance's name last month, when we were at the restaurant. I stared at her. I had never forgotten Vance's name. I had, on one occasion, called him Lance, by accident, and honestly, that felt like a completely reasonable mistake, because Vance is a ridiculous name, but I had not forgotten it. I called him Lance once, I said. That's not forgetting. That's just... Dad. Her eyes went wet. Just like that. Force it on. I can't lose you the way we lost Mum. I can't watch you get hurt because you're out here alone and you won't ask for help. And here's the thing about watching your daughter cry. Even when something feels wrong, even when your gut is firing alarm signals like a construction site with a gas leak, you second-guess yourself. You think, maybe she's right. Maybe I am slipping. Maybe I'm too proud to see it. That's what grief does to you. It makes you doubt the things you know. I sat there for a moment, just looking at her face, searching for the little girl who used to bring me drawings of our house, with hearts in all the windows. I couldn't find her. We found a really lovely place, Greta said, pushing the folder toward me. It's actually not far. Shepherd's Rest. It has a beautiful courtyard. The reviews are excellent. She said it like she was recommending a restaurant. Shepherd's Rest, I repeated. We've already started the paperwork process, Vance said, and I noticed he said it to the table rather than to me. Just preliminary things, nothing final. Already started the paperwork. For the home. For my removal. And the house? I asked. Greta and Vance exchanged a look. Brief, practiced. We'll handle everything, Greta said. The house, your accounts, all of it. You won't have to worry about a single thing. We'll take care of it. She was still smiling when she said it. That smile. I thought about Maureen. I thought about the 37 years we spent in this house. The scuff mark on the hallway baseboard, where Greta crashed her bicycle inside at age 9. The window in the guest room that sticks every August because of the heat expanding the frame, and how I know exactly the angle you have to lift it to get it to open. The lemon tree in the backyard that Maureen planted the year Greta was born and that still produces every spring without fail. They wanted to sell all of it. I nodded slowly. Let me think about it, I said. Greta looked relieved. Almost too relieved. Of course. Take all the time you need. They left an hour later. Greta hugged me again at the door. Vance shook my hand. I stood on the porch and watched their car back out of the driveway and disappear around the corner. Then I went back inside, sat down at my oak table, and did not move for a long time. The October air coming through the screen door was cool and dry, the way Scottsdale gets in the fall, when the brutal summer finally breaks, and you remember why people actually choose to live here. The lemon tree in the backyard was still heavy with fruit. Everything in the world looked completely normal. But I knew, something in my gut knew the way it knows when a foundation is off before the measurements confirm it, that what had just happened in my kitchen was not a worried daughter trying to protect her father. It was a transaction, and I was the asset being liquidated. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Maureen's old sewing room, which I'd kept exactly as she left it, because some rooms are too full of someone to change. I was holding her photograph from our anniversary in 2008, looking at her face, when I noticed the corner of something white tucked beneath the lining of her sewing box, a folded envelope I had never seen before. I opened it. Her handwriting, shaky toward the end from when she was sick, but still unmistakably hers. Earl, if you're reading this, then I'm already gone and you found my hiding spot, which means you were snooping, so I'm only a little bit sorry this is sad. I laughed out loud. Alone in that room at midnight, I actually laughed. And then I kept reading. I need you to protect yourself, not because I think you're weak. You're the strongest man I've ever known, and I've known some, but because love makes us blind to things we should see. I love our daughter, but I've watched her, Earl. I've watched the way she looks at the house, at your accounts when you leave statements on the counter. There's something there I don't trust. Don't let anyone take what you built. You built it, all of it, and it belongs to you. I read it 3 times. Then I sat with it in the quiet for a long while, listening to the desert outside, the distant sound of a neighbor's dog, the hum of the refrigerator down the hall. Maureen had seen it coming. 6 years dead, and she was still looking out for me. I folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope, and set it on the table beside me. Then I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in almost 2 years. The name of the attorney who helped me structure the purchase of Shepherd's Rest Nursing Facility back in 2008. The nursing home. The one Greta wanted to dump me in. The one registered in my name. I hit call. He answered on the second ring. Brannigan, he said, surprised. Been a while. Everything okay? I looked at Maureen's letter one more time. Not yet, I said. But it's going to be. The next morning, I made coffee the same way I always do. Strong, black, no sugar. And I stood at my kitchen window, watching the sun come up over the McDowell Mountains. Beautiful morning, clear sky. Not a cloud anywhere. And my daughter wants to throw me away. I'd slept maybe 2 hours. The rest of the night, I spent thinking, planning, remembering every single thing Greta and Vance had said at that table, the way their eyes moved, the way Vance couldn't look at me, the way Greta's tears appeared and disappeared, like a faucet she could control with precision. 40 years in construction teaches you to notice details. The smallest crack in a foundation can bring down an entire building, and there were cracks all over that conversation. My attorney's name is Bert Lassiter. He's 71 years old, semi-retired, and sharper than men half his age. He's also the only person outside of Maureen who ever knew I purchased Shepherd's Rest back in 2008. It was an investment, pure and simple. The facility was struggling under previous ownership, and I saw an opportunity. I bought it through a holding company, Brannigan Legacy Holdings, hired a management team, and let them run it while I collected the returns. Never told anyone, not Greta, not friends, nobody. Some things you keep close. Turns out that instinct saved me. Bert had agreed to meet me at 9 o'clock at his office in Old Town Scottsdale. One of those converted adobe buildings with exposed beams and a courtyard fountain that made you feel like you'd stepped back in time about 50 years. I arrived 10 minutes early. He was already waiting. "You look terrible," he said when I walked in. "Thank you, Bert. You look like you're about to start collecting Social Security." "Already do." He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "Sit down. Tell me what happened." I told him everything. The Sunday conversation, the nursing home brochures, the claims about my declining memory, the paperwork they'd already started, the way Greta said they'd handle my house and accounts. Bert listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling for a long moment. "She picked Shepherd's Rest specifically?" "Yes." "Your facility?" "Yes." He started to laugh. Quiet at first, then louder. The kind of laugh that comes from genuine disbelief. "Earl, your daughter is trying to put you in a nursing home you own. She's going to pay your own company to warehouse you while she steals your assets." When he said it out loud like that, the absurdity of it hit me. The beautiful, terrible irony. "I'm aware," I said. "What do you want to do?" I'd thought about this all night. Every angle, every possibility. The rage had come first. Hot and blinding. The kind that makes you want to drive to your daughter's house and say things you can never take back. But rage fades, and when it faded, something colder took its place. Calculation. "I want to let her do it," I said. Bert raised an eyebrow. "I want to move into Shepherd's Rest, play along, let her think she's won, and while she's busy selling off my life, I want to document every single crime she commits." "That's a long game, Earl." "I've got time. That's the one thing she didn't count on." Bert nodded slowly, a smile forming at the corner of his mouth. "All right then, let's talk strategy." We spent the next 3 hours building a fortress. First, the house. I signed papers, transferring the property deed to Brennigan Legacy Holdings, the same trust that owned Shepherd's Rest. Effective immediately. On paper, I no longer owned my home. The trust did. And the trust's beneficiaries were structured in a way that Greta couldn't touch, even if she had power of attorney. Second, my accounts. I moved 80% of my liquid assets into offshore accounts that Greta didn't know existed. The remaining 20% stayed visible, just enough to make her think she was seeing the full picture. Third, my will. I created a new one. The old will left everything to Greta. The new will left specific bequests to my grandchildren, trust funds they couldn't access until age 25, managed by an independent trustee who had never met my daughter and had no reason to do her any favors. Fourth, and this was crucial, I updated all my insurance policies, retirement accounts, and investment portfolios to remove Greta as beneficiary entirely. "She's going to find out eventually," Bert said as we finished, "when she tries to sell the house and discovers it's not yours to sell." I know, that's the point. And the nursing home? I smiled for the first time in 2 days. I need to make a phone call. Doreen Cratchit had managed Shepherd's Rest for 12 years. She was 58 years old, no nonsense, and completely loyal. I'd hired her when the previous management company tried to cut staff to boost margins. She fought back. I liked that. I called her from Bert's office. "Mr. Brennigan," she said, surprised. "Is everything all right with the facility?" "The facility is fine, Doreen. I need a personal favor." I explained the situation. All of it. The daughter, the scheme, the plan. There was a long pause on the other end. "Your daughter wants to put you in your own nursing home," she said slowly, "and she doesn't know you own it." "Correct. And you want to move in, as a resident, without anyone knowing you're the owner." "Also correct." Another pause. "Mr. Brennigan, this might be the most satisfying thing I've ever been asked to do." That's when I knew I had the right person on my side. We arranged everything. I would be given a private room, the nicest one in the facility, though not suspiciously nice. Staff would treat me normally in front of visitors. Behind the scenes, They would document every interaction with my daughter. Every comment, every question she asked about my finances. Every time she didn't show up when she said she would. "One more thing," I said before hanging up. "I'm going to need recording equipment in my room. Audio only, nothing visible." "Arizona is a one-party consent state," Doreen said. "As long as you're part of the conversation, it's legal." I know, that's why I asked. The next few weeks were an exercise in patience. I started forgetting things when Greta called. Small things at first. Where I put my reading glasses, the name of the restaurant we went to last month, whether I'd already eaten lunch. Each time, I could hear the satisfaction in her voice, the barely concealed relief. "He's getting worse. This is going to be easier than we thought." She started visiting more often, not out of love, out of surveillance. She'd show up unannounced, checking if the stove was on, if I'd left mail unopened, if there were expired items in my refrigerator. Once, she actually planted an expired yogurt in the back of my fridge and then discovered it with theatrical concern. "Dad, this is months old. You can't eat this. You could get sick." I stared at that yogurt. I knew exactly when I'd bought the yogurt currently in my refrigerator. It was 4 days ago. I watched her place this one when she thought I wasn't looking. She planted evidence. My own daughter planted evidence to prove I was incompetent. "I must have forgotten," I said, keeping my voice confused, slightly lost. She patted my shoulder, gentle, condescending. "It's okay, Dad. That's why we're here, to help." Help, right. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her. I wanted to scream, "I built the house you're standing in. I paid for your education. I funded your husband's failures. I gave you money every single month for 6 years, and you're repaying me by trying to steal everything I have." But I didn't. I smiled, and I kept playing the part. October turned to November. The desert cooled further. The days got shorter. I discovered, through a contractor friend, that Greta had already contacted a realtor about my house. His name was Preston something, worked for a luxury agency in Paradise Valley. She'd walked him through the property, my property, pointing out features, discussing staging options, talking about the timeline. The timeline for getting rid of me. She hadn't even waited for me to move into the nursing home yet. I also learned that Greta had been calling my doctor's office, not to schedule appointments for me, to provide information about my condition. Apparently, she'd called 3 times in 2 weeks, claiming I'd had episodes and was showing signs of significant cognitive decline. The receptionist, thankfully, knew me. She thought something seemed off about the calls and contacted me directly. "Mr. Brannigan, your daughter has been calling with some concerns. She wants us to document memory issues and confusion. She's asking about competency evaluations." Competency evaluations. She was building a legal case to have me declared unfit. "Thank you for letting me know," I said. "I appreciate your discretion." "Of course. And Mr. Brannigan, you seem completely fine to me. I don't know what she's talking about." At least someone could see the truth. The final piece came together the week before Thanksgiving. Greta called to tell me she and Vance had finalized arrangements with Shepherd's Rest. They'd put down a deposit, secured a room. Everything was ready for me to move in after the holiday. "We thought it would be nice for you to have one more Thanksgiving at home," she said. "A proper goodbye." A proper goodbye, like I was already dead. "That's thoughtful," I said. "We're going to make it really special, Dad. The whole family, Mackenzie and Sutton too. We'll cook here, use Mom's china, do it the way we always did." I closed my eyes. The way we always did, when Maureen was alive, when this family meant something. "I'd like that," I said. And I meant it. Not because I believed Greta's performance, not because I thought this Thanksgiving would be genuine or loving or real. but because it would be the last time my daughter would sit in my house, believing she'd won, and because my grandchildren deserved one more real holiday before their world fell apart. Thanksgiving Day arrived cold and bright. Unusual for Scottsdale, temperatures in the low 40s, the kind of chill that made everyone pull out jackets they forgot they owned. Greta arrived at noon with Vance and the kids. She brought flowers. She brought wine. She walked in with a smile so wide it almost looked genuine. Almost. "Dad," she hugged me like she hadn't seen me in years, instead of weeks. "You look good. The house looks good. I'm so glad we're doing this." Mackenzie and Sutton ran in behind her, actually excited to see me. Their hugs were real. Their happiness was real. They hadn't been corrupted yet, just coached. They told the kids I was confused. They made my grandchildren believe their grandfather was losing his mind. "Grandpa, can we play cards later?" Sutton asked. "Absolutely. And I'll teach you that trick I mentioned. The one where you cheat. It's not cheating. It's advanced strategy." He laughed. I laughed. This is what I'm fighting for. These moments. These kids. Dinner was surreal. We sat around the table I built, eating off Maureen's china, passing dishes the way we'd done for 20 years of Thanksgivings. The turkey was good. The conversation was polite. If a stranger had walked in, they would have seen a normal family enjoying a holiday together. But I watched everything. I watched Greta glance around the house with appraising eyes, calculating what each piece of furniture might sell for. I watched Vance scroll through his phone under the table, probably researching property values again. I watched my grandchildren, innocent and unaware of the war happening around them. One more month of playing weak. Then everything changes. After dinner, while the kids were in the living room watching a movie, Greta pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Dad, I brought some papers for you to look at. Just simple stuff, logistics for the move." She slid a folder across the counter. I opened it. Power of attorney documents, financial authorization forms, a medical proxy designation, all of them granting Greta full control over my life. "It's just for convenience," she said quickly, "so I can handle things while you're settling in, pay bills, manage accounts, that kind of thing." Convenience. She wants legal authority to drain everything I have. I looked at the documents. I looked at my daughter. She was still smiling. "Let me read through these carefully," I said. "I want to make sure I understand everything." "Of course, Dad. Take your time." I nodded. "I'll take my time, all right. I'll take exactly enough time to make sure you never see a single penny." Thanksgiving ended late. The kids fell asleep on my couch. Vance carried Sutton to the car, while Greta gathered leftover containers. At the door, she hugged me again. "I love you, Dad," she said. "Do you? Do you actually? Or do you love what I represent? The money, the house, the assets you've been counting for years?" "I love you too," I said. And part of me still did. That was the worst part. Somewhere beneath the rage and the betrayal and the cold calculation, there was still a father who remembered holding his baby girl for the first time, who remembered her first steps, her first words, her graduation day. That man was dying, and Greta was the one killing him. I stood on the porch and watched their car pull away. Then I went back inside, sat down at my kitchen table, and opened the folder she'd left. I read every word. Then I picked up my phone and texted Bert Lassiter. She brought POA documents. She wants full control. His response came 30 seconds later. Good. Let her push. The harder she pushes, the deeper she buries herself. I set the phone down. 1 week until the move. 1 week until I walked into Shepherd's Rest as a confused old man who needed care. 1 week until I took up residence in a building I owned, surrounded by staff who answered to me, with recording equipment, capturing every word my daughter said. She wanted to put me in a home. She didn't realize she was putting me in my castle. The trap was almost ready, and Greta had no idea she was walking straight into it. The morning I moved into Shepherd's Rest, the December sky hung gray and heavy over Scottsdale, like the desert itself was holding its breath. Greta arrived at my house at 9 sharp. She'd brought boxes, not to help me pack, but to start sorting through my belongings before I'd even left. I watched her through the kitchen window as she pulled them from her trunk, already dividing my life into categories: keep, sell, throw away. Efficient. I'll give her that much. Dad, she walked in without knocking. Had she ever knocked? Are you ready? The room is all set up. They're expecting you by 11. Almost ready. I stood in my living room, taking one last look. The oak table, the scuff mark in the hallway, Maureen's lemon tree visible through the back window, bare now in the winter, but still standing. I built this house, every beam, every wall, and I will be back. Dad, you okay? I turned to find Greta, watching me with that practiced concern. Behind it, I could see impatience. She wants me out. She can barely contain it. Just saying goodbye, I said. It's not goodbye forever. You can visit whenever you want. Visit my own home. How generous of you. Of course, I said. Let's go. Vance was waiting in the car. He didn't get out to help with my suitcase, didn't offer to carry anything, just sat in the driver's seat, scrolling through his phone, while Greta loaded my belongings into the trunk. I climbed into the back seat like a passenger in my own life. Enjoy this, Vance. Enjoy feeling like you're in control. It won't last. The drive took 20 minutes. Nobody spoke. Christmas music played softly on the radio, some instrumental version of Silent Night that felt deeply ironic given what was happening. When we pulled up to Shepherd's Rest, I looked at the building I'd purchased 15 years ago. Red brick exterior, manicured grounds, a fountain in the courtyard that I'd personally approved during renovations. My building, my staff, my rules. Here we are, Greta said brightly. Isn't it nice? Very nice, I said. You have no idea. Doreen met us at the entrance. She shook Greta's hand professionally, betraying nothing, not a flicker of recognition that she and I had spoken dozens of times over the past month, preparing for exactly this moment. Mr. Brennigan, welcome. We're so pleased to have you. Let me show you to your room. Greta followed, clipboard in hand. She'd brought paperwork, the same power of attorney documents from Thanksgiving, plus new ones I'd never seen. I'll need Dad to sign a few things before we leave, she said to Doreen. Authorization forms for his care. Of course, we can handle that in his room. We walked down a hallway that smelled like industrial cleaner and artificial flowers. Greta wrinkled her nose slightly. Vance had stayed in the car, couldn't even be bothered to come inside. 40 years of supporting this family, and her husband can't walk me to my room. The room itself was pleasant, private, a window overlooking the courtyard, a comfortable bed with crisp white sheets, a small desk where I could read or write, and hidden in the smoke detector, a recording device that captured audio at crystal clarity. Everything you say in this room, Greta, I will hear, and I will remember. This is lovely, I said, sitting on the bed. Very comfortable. Isn't it? Greta was already arranging photos on my nightstand. Pictures of the grandchildren, one of Maureen. Performative touches for an audience that wasn't watching. You're going to be so happy here, Dad. Happy, right? She pulled out the folder. Okay, so these are just standard forms. This one gives me access to your medical records. This one lets me manage your accounts while you're here. This one, Greta. She stopped. I'm tired from the move. Can we do this tomorrow? I watched her jaw tighten, just slightly, a flash of frustration she couldn't quite hide. Of course, Dad. Tomorrow is fine. There's no rush. Liar. There's nothing but rush for you. She stayed another 15 minutes, made small talk about the facility's amenities, mentioned she'd visit all the time, promised to bring the kids next week. Then she left, and I was alone. I sat on the edge of my bed and listened to the silence. This is it. This is where she wanted me. A room, a bed, a window, waiting to die while she sells my life out from under me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out Maureen's letter. I'd been carrying it everywhere since I found it. Don't let anyone take what you built. I won't, I said to the empty room. I promise. The first week was reconnaissance. I played my part perfectly, shuffled when I walked, asked staff members the same questions twice, pretended to forget meal times, let the other residents think I was just another confused old man warehoused by family who couldn't be bothered. They looked at me with pity. Soon they would look at me differently. Doreen checked in daily under the guise of routine visits. She brought me updates. Your daughter called the business office twice this week. She wanted information about payment plans and how billing works. What did you tell her? That we bill monthly and accept checks or automatic withdrawals. Good. Let her think she's figuring out the system. Greta visited exactly once that first week. 18 minutes. She spent 12 of them on the phone with someone. I heard her mention the realtor and staging consultation. 18 minutes for her father while planning to sell his house. She brought the kids on Christmas Eve. That was harder. Mackenzie and Sutton walked in with wrapped presents and genuine smiles. They'd made me cards. Sutton's had a drawing of us playing cards together, which nearly broke me. Grandpa, are you okay here? Mackenzie asked quietly, while Greta was distracted. She was 14, old enough to sense that something was wrong. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just resting. Mom said you were getting confused, but you seem normal to me. Smart girl. Too smart for her own mother's lies. I have good days and bad days, I said carefully. Today's a good day. She nodded slowly. I could tell she didn't fully believe the story she'd been told. That gave me hope. The kids will understand eventually. They'll know the truth. Greta rushed them out after 45 minutes. She had somewhere to be. Always somewhere to be. Merry Christmas, Dad. We'll be back soon. She wasn't back for 3 weeks. January brought progress. The recordings were accumulating. Every phone call Greta made within earshot of my room. Every comment to staff about managing Dad's affairs. Every question about my accounts, my assets, my house. Doreen brought me transcripts. She asked our billing coordinator if we could send invoices directly to her instead of to you. Said it would be simpler for everyone. What did they say? That billing goes to the resident or their designated representative. And she's not my designated representative. No, she thinks she will be once you sign her papers. Papers I will never sign. Meanwhile, my attorney Bert was busy. He'd discovered that Greta had officially listed my house with Preston Thorne of Paradise Valley Luxury Realty. The asking price was $615,000. The listing went live January 8th. She'd forged my signature on the preliminary authorization. My daughter committed fraud. Actual, prosecutable fraud. Bert had also documented her calls to my bank. 4 separate attempts to gain access to my accounts by claiming she had verbal authorization from me. The bank flagged every single one. She's building a paper trail of crimes, Bert said during one of our secret calls. The more she does, the worse it gets for her. Good. Let her keep building. When do you want to pull the trigger? I thought about it. The rage was still there, burning low and steady, like pilot light that never went out. But the satisfaction of watching her dig herself deeper was almost better. Soon, I said. Not yet. February came cold and bitter. Greta's visits dropped to once every 2 weeks, sometimes longer. She'd breeze in, take photos for her social media, visiting Dad, family first, heart emoji, and breeze out within an hour. I heard her tell a nurse that I was declining faster than expected. Declining. While I did crossword puzzles in pen and read financial reports every morning. The house had a buyer. An offer came in at $590. Greta accepted. The title company started their review. And that's when everything fell apart for her. I was in the common room, playing chess with another resident, a retired judge named Howard, who beat me 6 games out of 10, when my phone rang. Greta's number. I excused myself and answered in the hallway. Dad. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. There's been some confusion with the house sale. Something about the deed? Here we go. What kind of confusion? The title company says you don't own the house. They're saying it belongs to some trust. Brennigan Legacy Holdings? Dad, what did you do? What did I do? I protected myself from you. I don't understand, I said, keeping my voice confused. What trust? Dad, this is serious. The sale can't go through. I need you to fix this. I need you to call them and explain that there's been a mistake. I'm not sure what you want me to do, Greta. I'm just an old man in a nursing home. You said so yourself. Silence. Let her sit with that. Dad, I'm coming there. Tomorrow. We need to talk about this. All right, sweetheart. I'll be here. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood in that hallway for a long moment, phone in hand, heart pounding. Tomorrow. I called Bert. It's time, I said. The next morning, I woke up different. No more shuffling, no more confusion, no more playing weak. I showered, dressed in clean clothes, and sat in the chair by my window to wait. Doreen had assembled key staff members for a meeting. I'd told her what was about to happen and asked her to have security nearby, discreetly, just in case. Greta arrived at 2:15. Vance was with her. First time he'd set foot in the building since the day I moved in. Even now, he only shows up when there's money at stake. They walked into my room without knocking. Greta's face was flushed. Vance looked nervous. Dad, we need to talk about this trust situation right now. I don't know what kind of mistake got made, but... Sit down, Greta. Something in my voice stopped her. She stared at me, at the clarity in my eyes, at the steadiness of my hands, at the man she hadn't actually seen in months. Dad? I said sit down. She sat. Vance remained standing, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Smart man? Wrong instinct, but smart. There's no mistake, I said. I transferred the house to my trust 3 months before you tried to put me here. You've been trying to sell a property you have no legal right to sell. Greta's mouth opened, closed, opened again. But you were confused. You couldn't have. I was never confused. Not once. Not for a single moment. I pulled out a folder. The same way she'd pulled out folders when she came to my house that Sunday. The same way she'd presented paperwork like it was already decided. Payback feels appropriate. I recorded every conversation you had in this room. I documented every call you made to my bank. I have copies of the forged authorization you used to list my house. I have transcripts of you telling my doctor's office I was having episodes I never had. Greta's face went white. Vance took a step toward the door. Don't, I said to him. Security is in the hallway. You're not going anywhere. He stopped. There's something else you should know, I said. This nursing home, Shepherd's Rest, I own it. Have for 15 years. Every employee here reports to me. Every conversation you've had in this building has been documented. Greta made a sound, small, strangled, like all the air had been knocked out of her. You put me in my own nursing home, I said. You tried to steal from a man who was watching every move you made. Dad, I don't. The word came out hard, final. Don't call me that. You lost the right to call me that when you decided I was an asset to liquidate instead of a father to love. I slid the folder across the table. Adult Protective Services is investigating you for elder abuse and financial exploitation. The district attorney's office has been forwarded evidence of fraud. My attorney has filed a civil suit against both of you for damages. Vance made a break for the door. He got 3 steps before 2 security officers appeared and blocked his path. The grandchildren, I continued, looking only at Greta. Mackenzie and Sutton. I've set up trust funds for each of them, accessible when they turn 25. Independent trustees. You will never touch a cent of that money. Greta started crying. Real tears this time. Not performed. Not calculated. The tears of someone watching their entire plan collapse. Dad, please, I made a mistake. I was scared and You planted evidence in my refrigerator to prove I was incompetent. You told your children their grandfather was losing his mind. You couldn't visit more than once a month, but you found time to meet with realtors and forge my signature. I stood up. You're not scared, Greta. You're greedy, and you thought I was too old and weak to fight back. I walked to the door. You were wrong. The civil suit went forward. The criminal investigation expanded. Vance, facing serious charges for the forgeries, turned on Greta immediately. Gave up every detail of their planning, every conversation about when the old man finally goes. Loyal to the end, that one. Their marriage didn't survive the first month of legal proceedings. Greta was charged with elder abuse, fraud, and attempted theft. The case made local news. People in Scottsdale, people who knew our family, who'd watched Greta's Instagram performances about caring for Dad, learned the truth. The comments were brutal. I won't pretend I didn't read every single one. In April, I moved back into my house. The first thing I did was water Maureen's lemon tree. The second thing I did was sit on my porch with a cup of coffee and watch the sun set over the mountains. I built this life. Nobody takes it from me. My phone buzzed. A text from Mackenzie. Grandpa, Mom told us the truth about what she did. I'm so sorry. Can Sutton and I come visit this weekend? Just us? I typed back. I'll make pancakes. 3 dots appeared. Then, I love you, Grandpa. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I went inside, sat down at my oak table, and pulled out Maureen's letter one last time. Don't let anyone take what you built. I didn't, I said to the empty room, and our grandkids are going to be okay. I could almost hear her laughing.